Hey everyone, it's Mr. Loose, and your technique of the week is value and shading. So, value and shading is a great art technique for creating a realness to whatever you're drawing or painting. For example, I have a ball that I drew, or a sphere. You just start off by drawing a circle, and then you begin shading. Whenever you're doing any kind of shading, you have to keep in mind where your light source is coming from. So it could be a candle, a window, a light bulb, or the sun. But wherever the light is coming from, you want to keep that in mind the entire time you are shading and creating your artwork. And once again, value is awesome because it creates more realness to your subject matter that you're drawing or painting. For example, I just drew a circle, literally a circle, and it would just be a circle if I left it that way, but I wanted it to look like a ball. So to make it look like a ball, I just add some shading to it. But I don't just start coloring random all over the place. I keep in mind of where I want my light to come. So I chose for my light to be coming from this direction. And you know that because this side of the ball is lighter than this side of the ball. You also know this because there's this white spot right here. And it's not that I forgot to color there, that is my highlight, which means it is being hit directly by the light right there. There is nothing between the light and the ball right there. Now, the further away from my light source, it's gonna get darker. But it doesn't just go black-white, it slowly changes. So these are all called your middle tones because you have your highlight, your middle tones, and there's multiple. There's not just one color. It's not like a sandwich where you have bread, cheese, bread. It's not like that. You should see them slowly changing from one to the next. And then the furthest away from the light, it's going to be dark, and because it's not being hit by the light at all. And with it being so dark, it's almost black all the way over here. But it doesn't just go black-white, right? And then, of course, you have the shadow, which is created from the ball blocking the light. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you just how to do what's called a value scale, which is where you're practicing working on those light, middle, and dark tones. So the first thing we're gonna do is we'll get a pencil. That works great. And we're gonna start shading in each square. So we're not gonna start off really just coloring randomly. So the first box we're gonna do just a very light, as light and as soft as you can. I'm using a really heavy type pencil, so it's really dark even when I'm trying my lightest. So I'm not coloring that hard. I'm applying really soft light pressure. Okay, so here is my soft tone. Okay, and if it's still just a little too dark, you can go in and you can erase it a little bit. So that's great. Yeah, that was like a little too dark, so I'm gonna go in and erase it a bit. Okay, there, that's much better. Okay, now I'm gonna go in a little bit heavier, not much. And this is gonna be my first middle tone. Now, I broke our scales down into 4 different sections. It doesn't have to be just 4. There can be 20 if you want it to be that extreme. Like, there are so many different scales. It's really up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and just erase a little bit more here. Okay, so sometimes if you get too dark, the great thing with shading is you can always erase it. All right, so now I have light. It got a little bit darker, okay? Not super dark, but just a little bit. Now I'm gonna make it a little bit darker over here. Okay. but you can create as many middle tones as you want. I mean, obviously there's multiple lighter tones and darker tones as well, but you don't have to narrow it down to just 4. Okay, so there is our next middle tone. So it's slowly getting darker, right? Different amounts of pressure. Started off super light, and then I got slowly harder pressure. And now with my last one, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna color in dark. One last time, you do not have to have just 4. If you wanted to have more tones, that is totally acceptable. And this is just to give you an idea of how to break down shading. Okay, so this could either be your lightest tone or it could be your highlight. It really just depends on what you want. If you wanted a pure solid highlight, then you would just leave it white, or you could go in and erase completely after you've done your shading. And then you have your middle tones, and then this is your shadow, your darkest dark. This is what's not getting any light hit on it at all. 0 light at all. Just a little bit more light, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Okay? So you can see here where I have my highlight, light middle tones, and they're just slowly getting darker. Okay? So that is shading. All right? So shading is when you do the when you do it mainly with just blacks and whites, different amounts of light or less exposure to light. Now value, now this is all under value, okay? This is an element of art, and value refers to any type of shading, but value can also specifically mean with color. So we're gonna do the exact same thing we just did here, but with color. So I'm going to draw super, super soft and light with my color, and you can use any color you want. And let's say that we didn't draw a ball. Let's say we drew an apple. Okay. That apple is gonna be, let's say, red. So I'm not gonna have I'm not gonna have black and white when I'm doing my apple. If I want it to be red, I'm gonna do a beautiful red, okay? And I can't go about shading my apple the same way I did this, because if I have a highlight hitting my apple, it's gonna be a lot lighter, maybe pinker in one area, but then the further away from the light, the darker and more intense the red will be. So we did our light red, so now I'm gonna go in and do just a little bit darker for my middle tone. And if we were using something like paint and you wanted to get your value scale, you would add white if you wanted to make it lighter, more white to the color to make it lighter. Or if you wanted, instead of using white to make your colors lighter, you could add a little bit of black to make it darker. And the more black you add, the darker it would be. So that's how you would do that with paint. Going in, and it's just a little bit more heavy pressure and layering to create just a little bit darker of a middle tone. So now I'm going to go in and do it even darker. Okay. So I want it darker than this, but lighter than my last one, which is extremely hard, heavy, dark pressure. Alright, so there's my last middle tone, and now I'm going to go in and do my shadow with the red. And I'm going to color in super hard. So it's the exact same thing that I did here, but this is with color. So I'm super, super light, and then I'm slowly getting darker as I go. But when it comes to creating a piece of art, you're obviously not going to draw a little scale like this. You're going to have actually a picture. So I have my ball. So I would do the exact same thing in the red. I would do the same thing I did here, but with the red, except my colors would look like that instead of like that. Okay, so this is shading. Okay, because you have a shadow, a highlight, your middle tones, and this is value. Okay, so value can be with the different lightness and darkness of a color. So you could do the exact same thing with the colors on the ball, and you would do it the same way. All right, so this is a great way to do it in color. This is a great way to do it in black and white. All right, and it helps to make your artwork look more realistic. It looks like I could actually pick up that ball, even though it's just a flat drawing. So that is value in shading. This all falls under the same umbrella, if you will, and go out and give it a try. Get practicing on your tones. Remember, you have your shadow or your dark tone, your middle tones, and then your light tones or your highlight, which is being directly hit by the light. All right, that's it, and go enjoy.